Alrighty, alright. Alright. What's up, Smelly? What's going on? Yeah, I wasn't planning on streaming today. I said Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 6:30, but I just felt compelled to jump in here. There's just so much going on, and I like having an extra day. I feel like the content is better when my classic beverage. I feel like the content is better when I have a day between streams to sort of plan things out a little bit better. Um, Sort of digest a lot of the information that comes out. Because there's so much going on. I'm still so much is up in the air right now that I'm more interested in trying to create a coherent narrative. Outside of necessarily just giving the minute to minute updates. There's Rerum for that. There's Twitter for that, but I am sort of more interested in general how all of this is going to play out in the mid to long term. Missiles are going to fly back and forth. Shit's going to blow up. People are going to die. But what are the greater implications of all of this? Where is this going to go? So, the upper left looks like a peepee. Get your mind out of the gutter. We're already off to a great start, aren't we? Already off to a great fucking start, aren't we? Excellent. Awesome. Yeah. So essentially, maybe I'll give it a minute. I'm not. It's not gonna be a long stream. Nick's gonna go live, 9:30 anyway, so it'll be a pretty short stream. But essentially, came here with a positive attitude. You should do the same. Okay, yeah, okay. I don't know, man. It's a little freaky, man. When you, I don't like talking about like end times type shit, but there's just a lot of freaky stuff going on right now. The blood moon that peaked at 3:33 a.m. yesterday, or today rather, earlier at the 3rd, March 3rd, 333333. 33 is the master number. It's significance in both Kabbalah mysticism as well as Freemasonry. Jesus Christ died at the age of 33. It is Grand Masonry. It is 33. So there's a lot of like, and I don't like numerology. It's dangerous stuff. But I was also talking to my dad, and he told me like, a lot of these projections for like, which jobs AI is going to take over. 2029, it's going to be like lawyers are going to be replaced by AI and robotics. And the last one to go is going to be plumbers, according to this one estimate prediction at 2032. It's just really freaky stuff. I don't put too much stock into it. But, outside of like what's going on here, World War IV, nuclear Armageddon, it's like, what is waiting for us on the other side? All of our problems are not going to go away, even if we somehow come out of this unscathed or on top, It's freaky stuff. And, with the end times prophecies and, what, Jews believe, that their Moshiach will bring about the end times, rebuild the third temple, a nuclear, or rather a global catastrophe, a global cataclysm like a nuclear holocaust would kill a lot of people, but they would be saved on Israel. their savior, their Moshiach is our Antichrist. And then you have a lot of these evangelical Christians. I saw this article come out today. There are like 30, U.S. commanders that, believe they're playing out this biblical prophecy that, they're bringing about Armageddon as Jesus, as quote unquote, they believe that is Jesus commanded. Just total heresy. I don't know, man. It's some freaky stuff. They'll nuke Iran for sure. It's definitely on the table. I kind of believe that they would nuke Iran before we see a major, like, ground invasion. Scary stuff, man. And 2033 is the 2000th anniversary of Christ. Freaky, a little too freaky. It's getting a little too freaky. But specifically today, so the Strait of Hormuz is effectively closed. Something like 10 tankers were struck and are burned out. But what's really closing the strait isn't anything necessarily Iran is doing or the US is doing or Israel. It has more to do with the insurance, the financial backing of these large financial syndicates, primarily based out of London. And there's some stuff going on with the global shadow banking that runs out of London. But basically, they did a risk assessment and said, yeah, we cannot insure these vessels going through the strait. It's just too hot. The risk is too high. And if these tankers don't have insurance, they're not gonna sail, right? Because you've got enormous costs associated with one of these tankers going down. It's a huge risk to take that you're not gonna take by yourself. You want insurance. And so Trump came out today and said, well, we will, in order to keep the strait open, we will, which is really important for the global economy, we will escort ships through the Strait of Hormuz. Not the first time it's actually happened. We did something similar in 1987. But this is such an enormous risk. It's actually like fucking insane when you think about it. So it's like, okay, so let me get this straight. So the bankers are unwilling to insure these tankers that are moving through this region, but Trump is willing to insure these tankers with American lives. Because one of the biggest advantages our military has over the Iranian military is we have range. We have range and we have precision. So we can strike Iran from out here, right? Our Navy is, or one of our carrier groups is somewhere around here, kind of off the Horn of Africa, right over here, right? Close enough where we can strike Iran without, too large of logistical concerns, but they struggle to strike us. If we legitimately put in, and we don't know the specifics of what this would look like, but based on the language and, previous examples, from 87, it would mean literal naval escorts, ships, escorting these tankers through the Strait of Hormuz. But with that, so that's sort of what it might not look like that. Like maybe it's just air escorts, who knows? But that right now seems to be the where the language is what the language is suggesting, that we'll have naval ships traveling through the strait, which is fucking insane. Because we are removing one of our greatest strategic advantages that we have over Iran by taking our ships and putting them right up here, some 30 miles off the coast. We are in striking distance. And it's like, you have to think about this just practically. This is not a far engagement range at all. And so if they launch a supersonic missile or a swarm of drones, instead of having like hundreds of miles of reaction time, Now you have like at like minimum 30, depending on where exactly they're launching it from. So it's like you're almost begging Iran to strike your naval vessels if you seriously put them through the Strait of Hormuz. And it's like, for what purpose? To keep the spice flowing, to keep, some of the oil, at least from our Arab allies over here, to keep it flowing out of so that their economies don't collapse. Same thing with Europe. Europe is freaking out because, again, like a fifth of the world's oil goes through the Strait right here. And China, we'll get to China in a second, but it is just such an enormous gamble. Again, for what purpose? Is this begging Iran to strike one of these vessels so we can have some kind of escalation? I don't even think there's necessarily a plan. But it does feel like, is this a new Pearl Harbor type thing going on? I don't think, because here's the thing. If one of our vessels gets hit and sinks, it's one thing for how the government will feel about that. They can use that as like the pretense for like escalation, maybe boots on the ground. But I don't think people in America will really give a shit, to be honest. Half the country will cheer it on. It's things are really in flux right now. But China's freaking out in particular because they buy up 80% of Iran's oil. They have like a $400 billion deal, a 25-year-long deal with Iran. And so they are being starved. China is being starved of resources, and that's really limiting their options. And I think this coincides with Russia making deals with America. I mentioned that I keep mentioning this deal that's going through in Alaska, that one of the largest Russian oil refiners, Novatek, is going to refine oil in Alaska. And so maybe America is now making, and then now their apparent sanction, at least rumors of apparent sanctions reliefs that are coming for Russia. This seems like a softening on our foreign policy against Russia, a realignment to pull Russia, leverage Russia against China to bleed them dry. They can't get oil out of Iran anymore. Where are they going to get their oil from? They'll probably have to get it from Russia. Price of oil is going way up. It will do so much damage to the Chinese economy. And America, although I keep mentioning, Venezuela and all that, our production is going to go up, but it's unlikely that we can match the demand of oil, not just for China, but also for Europe, because Europe is reeling from this event. They're worried that their economy is going to collapse in a month. And so that's another reason why, I sincerely doubt the war in Ukraine is going to go on for much longer. When you actually look at the war, the front line is on the verge of collapse. Russia's going to take the Donbass. It's a given at this point. I think at that point in time, Europe and America and Russia are going to look for an exit strategy to shift their focus elsewhere, because the European economy cannot survive both a war in Ukraine as well as a war in the Middle East. They need oil. And especially as long as this war goes on, it's like, you can't even necessarily reliably move product through the Suez, because that's still in range of Iran. Iran can still, so again, the risk is still high, even if you go to the other side of the peninsula. So even if they try to move logistics around, it's unlikely you're going to find private capital investors in London that are going to be willing to insure hundreds of millions of dollars per tanker. It's just unlikely it's just too hot right now. And it's not like that situation is going to change. It's not like it's not like Chinese investors are going to be willing to take that risk on, because with that level of risk, it's like they're just going to lose fuck tons of money. 10 tankers went down. At least today, or according to this report here. That's so like, it is way too hot right now. And so long term, like I think this is such a huge blow to China. I think, I don't know how China, whatever ambitions they have to become the global superpower, I think they're dashed, at least for the time being. That's why I keep saying it's Israel that is more likely to ascend, I think, at this point than China, because they're just starved of resources. And so I think at this point, China will try to look for a deal. I think they'll try to strike a deal with America, and I think they'll make some concessions. They need oil, man. And like, what good is Taiwan if like they don't have oil? If their economy doesn't have oil, they need energy. They need oil for all kinds of manufacturing. They need oil for their war effort. They need oil for their navy, for their planes, for their tanks, etc. They can't do anything if they don't have oil. And if they start buying from America, then they could never really challenge America in a lot of these regions, because they're totally dependent on America. So it's like, I think that's kind of it for Chinese global ambitions. I think, you know, they'll plateau. Their ascent will plateau. And I don't think that, like, I just think, I'm like, as of right now, I think they've been curbed. My sister was in the Air Force, and some of her old squad mates are deployed in the UAE right now, and their base is being attacked. That's crazy. I have a friend, he from college, he's flying F-35s. And when I talked to him like about a year ago, you know, he said, like, he sort of gave me the rundown of like what he thought based on all three of these engagements. Like, Russia, you know, not really a serious military. Iran would be fun. If he said they went to war with China, he would die. That's the way he put it. He was stationed in the UK at that point. I don't know if he's in the region now. But I don't know, man. It's like, if you're in the military right now, I can't imagine morale is that high. But it's crazy to, so like, maybe I'll maybe go a little bit deeper on the speculation here. Because I do think that, like, the Israeli influence does want to disrupt NATO. They want to disrupt NATO, particularly because, as we mentioned before, Turkey is their next biggest threat in the region. Turkey has regional ambitions. They're not a nuclear power, but they're in NATO, that is. And so I think that's part of the reason why we're seeing, like, and for some time, we've seen a push within American politics, this like rhetoric that we should be anti-NATO. And some of it is fair. It's like, okay, like we could definitely get more out of this relationship than we are. Like, Europe should be America, essentially. Like, we should just colonize Europe, you know? There should be no ambiguity there. But, you know, for years, like, people were saying, NATO sucks. We should get out of NATO. We're spending all this money, and they never paid us back for World War II. You know, those kinds of talking points. What you have to understand is NATO serves a purpose. This is our playground. This is our sphere of influence. And so if, let's say, America leaves NATO, it will significantly be hindered. And I think at that point, like, Europe would have no choice but to do business with Russia. I think they're already going to do business with Russia. And as far as, like, as of right now, I don't think it's likely we'll leave NATO. I don't think it's likely that NATO will be broken up, but it is definitely going to be strained by Israeli interests. It's 100% going to be strained. Turkey wants Syria, but so does Israel. Turkey wants access to. They understand the significance of this region too. They're making deals with Somalia. They have a military base in Mogadishu, right here in the Horn of Africa. You know, so they could have some kind of military influence over the region. You know, and again, like, on both ends of the peninsula. So you see how they're making moves. Turkey has the largest conventional military in NATO, in Europe, the European arm of NATO right now. So they are the next proximate threat to Israel. And then, of course, Egypt is their next target. But if there is this realignment, particularly with Russia and China, and it is a big if, but if there's a realignment with the United States, maybe this is getting schizo. Okay, but bear with me. I'm not saying this is for sure. Maybe I'm not even necessarily saying this is likely. But is this like the only way we can curb Israeli influence in the future? Especially with these new trade routes opening up in the Arctic, a strategic alliance between the US, China, and Russia, as unlikely as it, and Europe, as unlikely as it may seem, we could have answers to the dominance of these important trade routes here by going north instead. And then would that be and who knows, maybe that's like biblical, maybe that's like Pax Judea, you know, the Jewish state against the entire rest of the fucking world, you know? Is that how that's going to play out? As some of these you know, Jewish mystic prophets like to sort of prophesize that that's what it's going to be. It's going to be the Jews, the nation of Israel versus the nations, you know, the world. And then you see Armageddon, you know, like who knows? Maybe that's a little too schizo. It's hard to say because there's a lot of ball that has to be played. It's hard to make any kind of accurate prediction right now, but I'm just speculating. But yeah, it's kind of funny because, like, you know, this administration clearly has like no coherent plan. They're just like fucking around in the like total goober foreign policy, and it's absolutely mogging China. It's absolutely, we're by accident shitterlucking, absolutely mogging China. Isn't that funny? We have bozos conducting foreign policy, and somehow they've just like completely like shattered Chinese ambitions. That's just like insane. They can get it from Kuwait. China? Let me ask you, where is Kuwait? Can you tell me where Kuwait is? Can you tell me where Kuwait is? Where they're going to get oil? How are they going to get oil from Kuwait if the Strait of Hormuz is closed? If that's what you're saying. If nobody is going to insure vessels going through this region. And I doubt that either Malaysia or Brazil can produce enough to fuel China. Maybe the US could in the future, but it's going to take major increases in production capabilities, which the time to do that would have been like 5 to 10 years ago. You can't build a refinery overnight. But if we take on more Venezuelan oil, we refine it here in Southeast Texas near Houston, where we have access to all of this sour crude oil. And then we sell that to China, hypothetically. But they need oil. They have to get it from somewhere. And so, someone from Catalonia, I would honestly do not care about leaving NATO Article 5. NATO started war. Everyone joins the war. It's also a Cold War relic. Mostly just provokes conflict every other week. It's not that simple. The thing about NATO, it's like this is great power politics. NATO is like an extension of America. NATO as a defensive pact, it's like you're aligning the European economy with yours. In many ways, it's just like territory denial. It's preventing like Russia or China from getting a foothold in Europe. We want their economy to be interlinked with ours. That's like, so in the same way, like China is trying to penetrate the Middle East, they're trying to penetrate the Pacific. We're trying to prevent that. This is just like, and like, this is great power politics. And so that's like this in this day and age, like the purpose that NATO serves. They just, militarily, Europe does not have enough to be, especially any individual country in Europe as of right now, they do not have the military, the economy, or the industrial base to like compete with China, America, Russia, soon to be Israel, It's just not. So like they have to like unify in some capacity. That's really what they should do. Like Europe and America should unify in collective interests. Because I'm telling you, like Israel in the near future will be the leading superpower if we stay on this trajectory, which seems likely. And then you will see, because their sphere of influence is increasing, you can literally see their sphere of influence increasing. They're spreading out like, you know, they're like a balloon. It's pumping up. They will move into the Suez. They will take Egypt, and you know they want control of this as well. A lot of money flows through here. They want, through their proxies, through their allies, and the other Abraham nations in the peninsula. They want the Strait of Hormuz, because of, you know, 20% of the world's oil goes straight through here. So if they can have access to both of these overnight, they're one of the richest countries in the world. And with that kind of power and influence, then you could turn your attention towards some of the like NATO states on the periphery. Maybe they look at Greece. Maybe they try to increase the relationship with Greece, leverage that against Turkey. How is Greece gonna feel? Like, you know, so now there are real challengers that are gonna try to pull, you know, certain NATO member states away from NATO into a separate sphere of influence. You know, that's what like Russia was trying to do, you know, with some of the satellite states. Like Belarus is in their pocket, but they, you know, they're trying to put pressure on Poland. They're trying to put pressure on like Latvia, for example. Even Germany, because, you know, Russia's a major supplier of energy, and Germany's going through an energy crisis right now. So I fought a UFC champion 70 pounds heavier than me without getting dropped because Islam gives you. Did he say that? That's got to be fate. Forget the Epstein blackmail and backroom personal threats. You don't think they already threatened the U.S. with nukes? Pollard said it in the video. No, they have. They have. Like, I mean, dude, people in the Pentagon, I'm sure, are aware of the Samson option. That's why one of the best things Trump could do, and he would do it because he's afraid of China or Russia, but one of the best things he could do is like pour money into what he called the Golden Dome, but literally just pour money into missile defense for the American mainland. On the off chance that, you know, there's probably Israeli subs off our coast armed with MIRV strategic nukes. And it would really benefit us if we had a multi-level comprehensive anti-ICBM defense system. There's so many things that need to be done. Like, we are so vulnerable to all kinds of things, but really from Israel, just based on how intertwined our tech, our infrastructure is with Israeli infrastructure, Israeli tech companies, or like ex-Israeli intelligence that work in like key positions in our tech. Like, you can look this up. Look up like how many Unit 8200 ex-Unit 8200 officers there are in like American tech in like Silicon Valley or in Virginia and DC, or in like, oh, they're all over the place because that's their mission. Their mission was to, you know, with the help of Zionist capital investment, start tech, you know, US-based tech businesses that are going to be, you know, favorable to Israel, embed themselves in the American economy and the American tech sector as well. And so that's a very precarious position if you're an American nationalist, because if we're totally dependent on Israel in this kind of way, or if we have backdoors, it's a big like conflict of interests. If you have a bunch of ex-Israelis that run these very sensitive sectors, when it's not even, I don't even think it's a matter of if, but when America becomes a competitor to Israel. And I think that's an inevitability, because Israel is ascendant and they will be able to challenge us in the future. And when that happens, like, you know, where is the allegiance of all of these like ex-IDF troops? Where's their allegiance going to fall? All these ex-IDF members that are living in America that have all of this power, all this wealth and power. control over our infrastructure, sensitive access to sensitive information. Where's their allegiance going to fall if it's some kind of war between America and Israel? So it's a major security threat. North and West, Iraq South, Saudi Arabia East, Arabian Gulf. If you want to show where Kuwait, no, I mean I just showed you where Kuwait is. It was a rhetorical question. My point is that if they like their export of oil goes through the Hormuz as well. So I'm saying, like, even if China tried to get their oil from Kuwait, they still have to go through the same choke point. And that's the problem, is the choke point is that insurance companies aren't backstopping these ventures. And so the ships aren't sailing, because you're not going to sail a ship through a fucking war zone, that's uninsured. It could cost you hundreds of millions of dollars per tanker, in theory. Nobody's going to take that gamble, You want to leverage that risk. So, I agree. Spanish economy is in the shit because instead producing shit ourselves, we just made it to source from elsewhere in Europe. Yeah, we need. Yeah, Europe is there. Your guys' economy is in trouble. I think in like a month from now, you're really going to feel the pain from this. Unfortunately, I think Europe is in big trouble. And that's, again, I wouldn't be surprised if like all of the European leaders are calling up Trump and like, what the fuck, bro? Like this needs to stop because they're getting slammed. And again, it's not like this stuff is necessarily too complicated to understand. You just look at a map and you understand that access to the ocean is access to the rest of the world, So if you cut off these choke points, then you can't move product through there. Like this is, the only, and like Iran doesn't have infrastructure to like, move their oil from over here. It's the same problem, It's very difficult to like just pick up and move your product through a completely different supply line. You don't have the infrastructure, and like where else are they going to go? Like what are the Arabs going to do? Again, they're still technically in range over here if Iran does decide to expand the scope of their missile strikes, but particularly these countries here are the ones that are feeling the pain. The Emirates, Kuwait, Qatar, Bahrain. So, Bibi told us, y'all got a phone? Yeah. So it's just like, fuck, man. It's scary because it just seems like Trump's just out of his mind, man. He's Caligula. He's actually Caligula. He's talking about going to like wondering if he's going to go to heaven or not. What the fuck is up with that? I don't think I'm going to go to heaven, he says. And it's like, I don't know, man. I tweeted this out, but it's like, you have to wonder, like, was it really God that saved his life in Butler, Pennsylvania? Or did he like sell his soul to the devil? Because that's like, I don't know who thinks like, I know he's getting old and that's like what you do when you get old, you start reflecting, but very creepy, very bizarre. It just sounds like he sold his, because this is demonic, what's going on, man. Not to like, moralize about all of it, but it is like, this regional conflict here is a global conflict. It's ballooning. China is involved. Russia is involved. Europe is involved. America's obviously involved. Obviously this concerns Eastern Africa as well. Western Africa is kind of irrelevant. And certainly we are trying to lock down our sphere of influence here in the way. It's literally the whole world is involved in this. It's scary. It's very, very concerning stuff. What do I think about the friendly fire incident on those F-15s? Oh yeah, I talked about that yesterday. It's just like typical, dude. It's like, because these Kuwaitis were briefed. you know that like they were told, hey, don't shoot down those planes. Those are American. Alhamdulillah, you know, and then Bombay, and they just like not just one but three fucking US fighters that they shot down because they're incompetent, because they're kind of dumb, you know, like that's common theme here. You know, a lot of these Muslim world is not the brightest. So it's just like fucking typical. I don't think it was like foul play or anything. I don't think they were like Iranian sleeper cells. Because I think you could totally explain that with just pure incompetence, pure Arab Muslim incompetence. So Trump is fishing for attention from religious people. I don't know, man. Like, I mean, like, how is that a good optics though? Saying I don't think I'm gonna go to heaven. Is that good? Does that sound like reassuring to you? I remember hearing that, and that gave me, as a religious person, that gave me pause. What the fuck? What a weird thing to say, you know, on the brink of World War III or World War IV or whatever. What an odd thing to say. That's not reassuring. That's not reassuring at all. That makes me very concerned. So, one of three pilots was a woman. Yeah. Jokes. But yeah, there's so much information. It's honestly hard to keep track of it all. Like I said, I felt compelled. Like today's going to be a sort of a short stream. I felt compelled to go live today, because I like having that extra day to really kind of digest what I'm consuming here, and just give myself a little more time to think critically about how this is all going to shake down. Apparently, the South Korean economy is crashing. It's just this is literally a global event. And so there's so much to parse. It's tough to keep track of it all. But to an evangelical, it's not concerning. Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, evangelicals are fucking cooked. They think that like, yeah, the evangelicals are just cooked, man. They're fucking cooked. These heretics are like, actually, they want to bring about the end of the world. Fucking freaks. So. Not a joke. I know it's not a joke. I'm just saying it's like obvious joke award. It's like not even like, it wasn't even like user error. Like the fucking Kuwaitis, the dumb allies shot down. Like, you know, you're flying over friendly territory. You're not in evasive maneuvers. You're not expecting a fucking your own guys right underneath you to shoot you down. So it's like not even her fault, really, you know? I know the joke, you know, female pilots, 50% of avoidable air crash events in commercial piloting occur. Like 10%, like DEI hires, this is kind of a fucked up stat. DEI hires, which include like women and minorities, make up about 10% of pilots commercially. But over the past like 25 years, it made up like over 50% of the incidents. A little concerning, but that's like, that has nothing to do with this event, obviously. So yeah, it's yikes, man, yikes. Let me see if there's anything new going on up here. Let me see if there's anything new that I missed. I think Nick said he's going live at 9:30. According to the Wall Street Journal, it was a Kuwaiti F-18 that was responsible for mistakenly shooting down 3 F-15s. I don't know if that's hard to believe, though. I don't know if it was a single F-18 would shoot down 3 F-15s. I don't know. You would think somebody would have radioed in like, "Hey, stand down." I don't know. That seems hard to believe that a single F-18 shot down our 3 F-15s. Breaking IRGC ground forces have moved into Marivan Kurdistan province, Iran, and have told residents to evacuate. They are likely setting up positions in preparation for possible ground conflict. That's a distinct possibility. Are there any updates on here? Or bombings? Yeah. Well, again, and you know, the Kurds were like the biggest thorn in their side. So the northwest of Iran, if there would be ground fighting, it would occur up here because the CIA and Mossad-backed Kurds would, you know, they want, our government wants this war to be fought primarily through proxy. But I just don't think there are enough Kurds to do that realistically. No. We'll hit the phased array radar Ari Air Base. $1.1 billion. Yeah. Yeah, it just, yeah, so the big question is, can we take out their missile sites before we run out of interceptor missiles? Because then we're in trouble. Because we've burned through years worth of interceptor stockpiles in days. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know how China, how this is going to play out for China though. They need to get their oil. But anyway, those are sort of my thoughts.
So wait a minute, let me get this straight. America and Israel attack Iran, and Iran's answer is to just attack everybody. You know, having been in a bar fight or two in my life, I'm pretty sure the worst thing you can do during a 2-on-1 beatdown is slap everyone else. Hey, not every part of me is getting...
It's not just everybody else. It's like, where are the American bases in the region? They're in those countries. So like, as far as like Iran is concerned, you know, America, Israel, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, etc., they're one block. Great short stream. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us. Yeah, no problem, Smelly. No problem. Thanks for showing up. Just like I said, it's like a very impromptu thing. I feel like we got way more on the ground footage during 12-Day War. They def got internet on lock. And again, I said this yesterday. It's like, you know, we already knew about the mass censorship in Iran because of the relentless propaganda coming in from America. They, like, obviously, you've got CIA and presumably Mossad working overtime to try and foment some kind of color revolution. Not really working. And so one of the ways the Iranian government has been able to counter that is with censorship, internet blackouts. That's on top of the cyber attacks that both, America or Israel, whoever is really at fault here, were conducting as well, that knocked out like 96% of the country's internet. And so a lot, and this is another element I haven't heard anybody say, except for me, you know, consider who then has internet in the country. So when you see a lot of this protest footage, I mean, those are people who have Starlink. Where do they get Starlink from? They were smuggled in by the CIA. It is a tool in this war. You arm the most like rambunctious, rebellious parts of the Iranian population to like be the only propaganda that's going to come out of the country. The only footage you're going to see is going to come from people who have internet access. So it's either going to be like Iranian state media or it's going to be people with Starlink. So it's either going to be like obvious Iranian propaganda, or it's going to be people who have access to internet that the CIA gave them. That's part of the strategy here. And that's why a lot of the footage you're seeing, it creates this bias. You know, the only footage naturally, quote unquote, occurring footage that you're seeing is coming from, you know, people who are given access to internet by our own government. So you can imagine, you know, what kind of bias those people are going to have. You know, so I think that the people cheering on the American invasion, I think it's definitely overstated. You know, but that's like the talking point that you hear from like a lot of people defending this, like even Asmongold. The Iranian people want this. They're celebrating this. And it's like, come on. Like, let's put two and two together here. Not to mention, that's before it even gets to X or Facebook, Instagram. It's like, these are all like Western controlled social media platforms. Yeah, X, that's controlled by Elon Musk, the same guy that gives the CIA Starlink. You know, what's the algorithm gonna? The algorithm is gonna be tweaked. What do you think? Like, you think on his own platform he's gonna, you know, he is helping the war effort on the side of America. You don't think he would do the same thing, not just by supplying them Starlink, but also by tweaking the algorithm a little bit? You know what I'm saying? You have to be a little suspicious of the stuff you're seeing. We're in the middle of the fog of war. A lot is happening, and so your feed is very much being curated. So it's not just like like at this point the obvious bias that you're seeing from legacy media stooges like Jewish Jon Stewart or anything like that, but like literally, if you're a normie, like your feed is probably looking a little more pro U.S. war in Iran than it naturally would be. So, yeah, great job, thanks. Glad you guys appreciate it. At the Texas primaries, I guess Dan Crenshaw lost his congressional seat.
Please respect Israel. Arg, I'm Dan Crenshaw. Can you please respect Israel? Arg.
Let's move on. Nick Fuentes. Boy, Nick is interesting. I don't watch Nick regularly because, frankly, I don't watch anybody regularly. I have seen things he's done. I've seen things he's said. Dude brings receipts, period. He's incredibly bright. And he's frankly right about a hell of a lot of things. Brings a lot of fire on himself. We all know why. He despises Vivek.
W?
He despises a lot of things going on that I also despise, and is the reason why I'm running to literally save the state of Ohio. His viewers have done super chats talking about me to him. And he's brought that up. But I'll say this. I think he brought up, somebody sent me, that he likes Casey Putsch very much and will be reaching out to him soon. I think I got those words pretty close.
I don't think Casey will win though. Unfortunately.
I
don't even know if he's going to be on the ballot. I haven't been keeping up with the race, but I don't even know if he's going to be. Yeah, I don't think he can win.
He has every ability to get a hold of me. I have never heard from Nick Fuentes or any of his people. I have never spoken to them. So I don't know what that's all about, and I can provide no one any intel. That's really it. Why do I bring this up? Well, frankly, because so many of his viewers are my viewers as well. And for anybody out there in the world that wants to attack me or his viewers, you can go fuck yourself. Because these are Americans, these are Ohioans that frankly are hurting. They're hurting because of Washington, D.C. and all of our state governments and lower governments destroying all of our lives for the entirety of our lives. I think it sums that up pretty well. So everybody can get over themselves. That's the way I feel about that. But I don't know what Nick's doing.
Yeah, I just don't think he can win. I don't think he'll win in the primary, unfortunately. But maybe it sends a stronger message if what's more important is that Vivek loses. Maybe that can only really happen if it happens in the general. Maybe that sends a bigger message. I'm not sure. But the reality is I don't think Casey can win, unfortunately. Casey's a Wang half, yeah. He is.
Force during the Iraqi attack on Iran and the breaking of the Iran-Iraq war, when the revolutionary government of Khomeini was already...
Oh, this guy looks like what's that? I mean, come on, bro. I mean, come on, bro. I mean, come on, bro. Come on, bro. Come on, dude. What the fuck? That's crazy.
Already in place. My patriotic duty was asking me to, as a pilot, to go and fight alongside my military brethren in that war. I was prepared to die then. I'm prepared to die now. There's no greater cause for that, the liberty. And what is my life when I'm thinking of millions of young Iranians who today call my force during the Iraqi...
Bro. Yeah, of course, all of these Iranian expats, all of these Iranian members of the diaspora that are like pro regime change. It's like, dude, you left your fellow countrymen. you left Iran. Like, I actually think that your opinion matters less. Like when I hear Patrick Bet David, I'm like, your opinion actually matters less on this matter. Okay? I don't, like, literally, I weigh Patrick Bet David's opinion on this matter less than I would an average American. It's like, bro just got here. Okay? Bro just got here. You are clearly biased. But if you were, I care more about what real Americans have to say about this.
We're not talking about North Korea today. And there's a reason why we're not talking about North Korea, because North Korea has a nuclear weapon. And so nobody wants to mess with North Korea. Well, the Iranians weren't building a nuclear weapon. There are 2 CIA national intelligence estimates that concluded that there was no nuclear weapons program, besides the fact that Ayatollah Khamenei issued a fatwa decades ago saying there will be no nuclear weapons program. But Benjamin Netanyahu came to the United States dozens upon dozens of times to try to convince whoever happened to be president at the time, and we're going back 4 or 5 presidents, that Iran was an existential threat and that there was indeed a nuclear program, and so Iran had to be destroyed. Well, that was a lie. And now here we are in a hot war, wondering how we're going to get out of it. We're not.
Yeah. I like this account a lot. It's just worthy to keep track of a lot of these people. You know, who's funding them, what organizations they're part of. Because obviously Russia doesn't want to lose their asset in Iran. So I think that there's something going on with a lot of these like Russian adjacent American commentators. Like this guy, but also like Tucker, that are critical of the war, but it feels like they're sort of representing foreign interests, in this case, namely Russia. Very suspicious of it. Like that's the angle that they're really coming from. They're sort of advocating on behalf of Russia and Russian interests. So, anyway. Think going live anytime soon? Let me see. I don't know. Game updates? Nothing new since yesterday. I guess real quick before I hop out here, like I said, short stream. Marathon comes out soon. What does this guy think? Ground invasion? Because I saw how. Oh, that's interesting. Wait, they changed the title of that? Seems like both Cappy and the Enforcer believe that ground invasion is imminent. U.S. ground invasion?
I would say there's probably a good bit of sailors that are not going to want to risk that. The companies may try to, not coerce them, but more like pressure them to go through the Strait. But that seems to be getting into kind of sketchy territory. So I'm not really sure if this is actually going to fix the problem.
Dude,
U.S. naval escorts, I'm not sure.
If you are a sailor and you're ordered to go through the Strait of Hormuz, like you have to know that that's a fucking death sentence. You have to know that that is a fucking suicide mission. Like literally, you have removed all of your advantages. You are, because think about it.
The insurance.
Like, you can't. This right here might as well just be like one-dimensional. You have such little room to maneuver. You are so close off the coast of Iran. I just if this is a serious proposal, if they actually do this, if they actually put naval assets up there, like, dude, I don't know. If I'm a sailor, I'm like, dude, we're not fucking doing that. Mutiny.
Will on its own. I think they will want the U.S. Navy there to protect
Nick
these
tweet.
ships going through. So I'm with the 39%. I think only a few renegades will dare to pass through,
Nice.
even with the insurance. But Enforcer, what say you?
A couple
Yep.
of companies
Boots
that
on the ground.
might be a little bit more
I
adventurous.
heard it
or
was.
risky.
I
I'm not
forgot
trying
to
to
mention
beat the
that.
passage, but
I heard it was like what, limited initially. I forgot. Again, too much going on. We'll see what Nick has to say. Anyway, like I said, so I think I'll be Be back tomorrow. I'll be back tomorrow. Back to regularly scheduled programming after I have a little more time to parse through all this stuff. But yeah, let's all go watch Nick. And yeah,
An essential part of.
Yeah, I'll see. Thanks for tuning in for this short stream. At W Show, thanks. I'll see you guys tomorrow at 6:30 Central. So take care.